Hello and welcome to another episode of Step Up with Stephanie, Life Lessons that Elevate the Soul. I'm Stephanie Mara, your podcast host. I'm so excited to have you here with me today. If you are listening for the very first time, welcome to the podcast. If you are a returning listener or viewer, for those of you that might be watching on YouTube, welcome back. I'm glad that you're here too. It is my goal to really grow the podcast and to grow the impact and the reach over time for this work that I'm doing here, and I can only do that with your support. And so if you hear something today that resonates with you, please do me a huge favor, like, share, and also hit that subscribe button. It would be greatly appreciated. So we're going to move right into today's topic. We're going to be talking about the 4 killer C's, right? 4 killer C's, if you can imagine. So as I was reflecting and preparing for this segment and just reflecting on my own soul's journey, these killer C's can be so silent, right? Silent killers are very, very covert that if you're not really growing in awareness or self-reflecting, you won't even really know that they are at play or at work in your life or in your experience. And so I'm going to be sharing 4 killer C's and talking about some of the problems that are associated with these things. And also, in true educator fashion, I'm going to be sharing some solutions and offering some action steps that you can take to really mitigate some of these C's at work in your life. Now, the first C that I want to talk about is complaining. We all know chronic complainers. When I say the word complain, if I just give you 60 seconds, you could probably make a list of a lot of people in your inner circle, in your first circle, whether they are family members or friends, that are always complaining. And, I often say that how you do one thing is how you do everything. And so when we're talking about these C's, we're talking about things that are happening probably in your personal life as well as in your professional life or in your business endeavors. And so when we talk about complainers, they have a way of really, really just bringing down the vibration, bringing down the energy in a place or space. There's always something to complain about. So for example, if you've ever gone to dinner with a complainer, they're complaining about the service. They're complaining that it's not fast enough, or they're complaining about the food or the price of the food, or they're complaining about having to pay to park, to valet, and it just, it goes on and on and on. Or, you have that person and every time the phone rings, there's something that they're complaining about. Life is always happening to them. Life is never happening for them. Someone cut them off on the street. This happened at the store, this interaction, and it's just constant complaining. It wears away at over a period of time. And so some of the problems with being a constant complainer is that it can strain relationships. I can tell you that I know constant complainers. I know chronic complainers, and I don't really like hanging out with them. I don't like spending a lot of time with them. And, because there's just always something. It's just an energy drain. There's just big zap sometimes when they come into the room because something is always going wrong. These are the people, those proverbial glass half empty people. And it's a perspective. It's a set point. And so something's always missing. Something's always broken. Nothing's ever going their way. And it can really, really just drain you over a period of time. So think about complaining and the impact that being a chronic complainer can have. And maybe you're that complainer, or maybe you are availing yourself to those complainers and they're in your space and they're zapping your energy. The other problem with constant complaining is that it lowers your point of attraction. Now, I believe that we live in an attraction-based universe, and that means that we are, if we think about the law of attraction, that we attract things to us. So what we put out, we get back. So for example, if I'm constantly complaining that I don't have enough money, I never have enough money, and I know we've got those people in our spaces as well, then what I'm emitting is this signal of not having enough money. And so guess what I get back in return? I always find myself in a financial hole or struggle, or I don't have enough money. I've created that experience. And then guess what I do? I complain about it when it happens. We don't understand how it really works. So we're constantly complaining, and as a result, what do we get? More to complain about. So it lowers your set point or your point of attraction or the things that you're able to put out that you really want to get back. So we're constantly complaining. So I've only got one solution to chronic complaining, and that is practicing gratitude. Gratitude. It is the only way that you can really mitigate this idea of having those constant complainers. I'll tell you a quick story. I was in the store the other day with my daughter, and I was returning an item, and the line was really long. And there was one person working behind the counter taking the returns, and there was a manager that was there on duty who was pretending, what I call pretending to be busy, and pretending that she didn't see this long line of people. So she's walking around shuffling papers and shaking keys around and, looking like the manager. But people were growing very agitated and irritated in this line, having to wait for her. And so I took a deep breath, in through your nose, out through your mouth. And I said, I'm about to run out of time to return the item, so I don't have a lot of choices. So complaining about how slow the line is moving or how terrible things are isn't going to change anything. And so you could hear people growing agitated in the line and huffing and puffing and, making eye contact and all these gestures at each other. And I just chose not to do that. When I got to the line, the person that was right before me was really rude to the person that was doing the transaction. And I thought, well, that doesn't make sense. It's not her fault. Like, I understand in retail how the food chain works, and the person at the register is not the person that's responsible for what's happening. But anyway, I returned the item. The young lady was super, apologetic, for the line being really slow. And I said, no, it's not your fault. And my daughter, was asking when we got back to the car, why were the people being so ugly to her, the people in front of us in line? And I said, well, some people just have to have something to complain about. So I'm not excited about a poor customer service experience, because do believe I had some very strong communication with the general manager following that experience. And just let's say we had some words, right? So I did talk a little bit about, from a customer experience perspective, what could have happened or what should happen in those instances. But I also made it very clear that complaining, to my daughter, complaining about it wasn't going to change it. So why engage in, this barrage of complaints and joining in and getting on the bandwagon with everybody else that was complaining about the line and everything else in the world, the president and the cost of gas and, whatever. So just learning how to practice gratitude, being thankful, when you're finding yourself in that moment wanting to complain, I guarantee you that there's something that you can be grateful for. You might have to find a magnifying glass, but I guarantee you that there is absolutely something that you can be grateful for. So the solution to constant complaining is to get into gratitude, quick, fast, and in a hurry. The second C is a big one, and it is comparison. It is the thief of joy, and it is the comparison where we are constantly measuring ourselves against another person. And I'll be the first to say social media has been the biggest blessing, but it has also been the biggest curse, because I feel like in today's society, it is the greatest culprit to comparison. And people struggle to really differentiate reality from what they see on the free apps that we all use. And so when we think about this idea of constantly measuring ourselves, we have to be able to keep in mind that people are showing the parts of their life that they want the world to see. And I don't blame them. I've seen instances where, in an attempt to be vulnerable and transparent, people are sharing too much information. I know you've all scrolled and you saw those things that people will share, and you're like, okay, I really didn't need to know that. I could have gone through life without knowing that. But when we think about this idea of constant comparison, it really feeds into this sense of inadequacy, and it could erode self-esteem over a period of time. You're feeling less of yourself because you feel like the person that you're watching on this free app is doing better than you. Their business is more successful than you. They've got more engagement. They've got more likes. They've got more fans. They've got more followers or friends or whatever. all of these false senses of belonging and success, or whatever that you want to call it, most of it is not even real. The other thing is that when we're thinking about comparison and having that strong dissatisfaction with our own life, we can't appreciate our own personal accomplishments. We don't appreciate what we have because we're constantly comparing ourselves to the next person, what they have, what they don't have. And you don't even know. Sometimes what you're seeing could be the result of something that's been ill-gotten from someone, and you don't know that. So what are some ways that you can work through this idea of constantly measuring yourself up and not feeling good, or really feeling bad about yourself based on what you're seeing, or this false sense of measurement out there? The first thing that you can do is focus on your own journey. Get in the mirror. I often say that the magic is in the mirror. So focusing on yourself, focusing on your journey. That's one of the only ways that you can begin to mitigate this idea of comparison. A second thing that you can do is really investing in yourself. When we, sometimes we don't properly invest in ourselves as much as we should. Now, we will invest in external things, or clothes or jewelry, or those things that make us feel good on the outside, but we don't really invest on the things that can really grow us on the inside. Whether that's taking a course, or just learning something around mindset, or shifting mindset, or having those big paradigm shifts. We don't tend to want to invest in those things because those results can often be intangible. And so once again, if we want to thinking about ways to move through comparison, we've got to be able to focus on our journey, and we've got to be able to really prioritize investing in ourselves. I know for me, I spend a lot when it comes to investing in myself, and especially in my business. And it really does boost my confidence when I know that I'm spending not only my resources, but my time, my energy, my effort, my attention to really growing myself. Whether that's my business. I've recently hired a business coach that I'm working with, and it is helping to really boost my confidence, right? It's not easy starting a business and growing a business, and I've not done that work before. So I could either figure it out the hard way, or I could take the shortcut and work with someone who's done it and who's had the success. And that's one of the reasons why I decided to work with a business coach. But I'm investing in myself, and I feel good about that. And so that keeps me out of comparison. So if I log on to social media and I'm seeing someone else's business who is doing the type of thing that I want to do, or at the level that I want to do it, I don't feel this need to compare myself, because I know that I'm investing myself to grow my craft and my skill set in a way that will allow me to have the success that's due to me as well. So comparison, and it really, really feels bad, right? You don't feel bad when you're constantly comparing yourself. You can't feel good about it. And as I said before, people will show you what they want you to see. They'll show you the highlighted parts of their life. They'll show you, the high points. That's what they'll show you. That's not what you want to see. That's not what you want to focus on. You want to focus on yourself, and you want to focus on what you're doing to invest in yourself. The next C is competition, which is very close to comparison, and it really kind of feeds off of the other. When we come back from the break, we're going to move into the next C, and we're going to be talking about some of the problems that are associated with competition, and some of the solutions, and some of the ways that you can really move through this idea of competition. So far we've talked about complaining, we've talked about comparison, and the way that they can both just erode your sense of self-worth and self-value over time. And so when we get back from the break, we'll dig into these other two C's. I'll see you in just a few moments. Solstice Leadership Consulting is a boutique-style professional learning and training firm equipping organizations to develop leadership capacity in individual members and teams. Our thought leadership, combined with over 2 decades of experience in educational administration, change management, and instructional design, enables us to power current and aspiring leaders to harness the power within to drive organizational effectiveness. The vision is to create a world where leadership is synonymous with authenticity, compassion, and purpose. Our mission is to cultivate a dedication to leadership that transcends conventional managerial methods. Interested in working with Solstice Leadership Consulting? Visit us today at stephaniemorrow.com. All right, so now for the third C, we're going to be talking about competition and really what that looks like. And I want to start by saying that competition is really a byproduct, I believe, of comparison. So once you've just, measured yourself against others and what you see going on around you, that quite naturally can lend itself to breeding a spirit of competition where your goal or your outcome is to really outperform the other person to achieve a specific goal or outcome. You really want to outperform when we're thinking about competition. I will say that there is a such thing as a healthy competition. One of the first business coaches that I ever worked with was Trevor Otts, and I've mentioned his name many times before in this podcast. And he talked about using competition as a growth mechanism. When competition is healthy, it should inspire innovation. It should inspire growth in ways for you to really expand yourself or your business if we're thinking about it from a business perspective. So healthy competition is welcomed. It is actually needed. It provides a sense of growth or a way for us to grow or an avenue by which we can grow. But I'm talking about in this sense the type of competition that really has this crazy desire for you to be recognized or to be seen or to rewarded or to dominate. And the reality is when we have that mindset or that perspective, it means that you're looking to outdo another person. Not this idea that there's room for us all to do well or to succeed, but I'm really wanting to outdo or to outperform another person. And so that's really what's feeding or fueling this sense of competition. And we all know people around us that are, competing sometimes with us. Sometimes that's a silent competition. Sometimes it's a very overt and noisy competition. And you can just kind of tell when someone's, often competing with you. And the reality for me is when those instances occur, it's amazing because that's not how I am. And so people that want to compete with me, they fall off from my existence. Attrition, I often say, is one of my best friends. Just naturally, people will fall away from me that really want to compete with me because it's just an unhealthy, way to use your energy and your time. I have an amazing group of friends, and part of that is because we don't have this sense of competition where one person's trying to outdo this person. Well, I live here. Well, I drive this. Well, we vacation here. Well, we've got this. And we just don't have those dynamics in our relationship. And so this idea of competition, it just doesn't exist. I have absolutely been in environments where people want to be competitive, and I don't like the energy. I don't like the way it feels. And as I said, just with time and attrition, people just begin to fall off, or, you look, they're there today and tomorrow they're gone. One of the problems with competition is that it's really rooted in the fear of failure. People feel like they're going to fail or they don't have enough, and it really kind of goes along with a scarcity mentality. There's not enough to go around. As I said before, if you succeed or if you shine, then there's not going to be enough left for me. And that's just not the case. And so some of that can sometimes be fueling and really driving this sense of competition. And it's very important in that instance that you're able to identify what the source of it is. Where did it come from? When did you start feeling this sense of lack or not being enough or not having the sense of belonging? What's really bringing that up? And many times, and I'm no, mental health professional or anything like that, but many times it will go back to things in childhood, not being seen, not being valued, not being heard, feeling misunderstood. And so we grow up and we carry all of these things with us, and it can really breed this unhealthy sense of competition in us. And so where did it come from? So being able to kind of put your finger on the root of it and figuring out where it really came from or stemmed from is going to be very important. So what are some of the solutions that you can think about to start moving away from this spirit of competition? The first one is going to be identifying that you are your only competitor. Your only goal is to be better than you. Your only goal and your biggest desired outcome is to be better today than you were before. 2024 is right around the corner. I've got a milestone birthday coming up next year, and my goal next year is to be better than this year. My goal at 50 is to look and feel better than I have ever in my life. I am my only competition. When I'm putting my numbers up on the board, I've got some big financial goals that I want to reach this year. I've got some revenue goals for my business that I've got up before me on my vision board. Those are the things that I'm competing with. And so I'm really using this idea of a growth mindset and focusing on the ways that I can grow and be better to achieve those goals. I don't have the time and the energy to compete with another person because we don't know what the factors are. There are a lot of variables and things, a lot of knowns and unknowns. And so it will be a total waste of energy for me to compete or to try to have the same outcomes as another person because I don't know how they've gotten there. And so I am obsessed with my own progress. So I am my only competition. And you hear it a lot, especially as it relates to sports, that you're competing with you. But it is the truth. You are your only competition. And if you would stay in your lane and focus on your own journey and a lot of the other things that we've talked about earlier in the podcast, you would be able to really drive home this idea of only being in competition with yourself. Another solution is using what you perceive as competition to really drive innovation and to drive change. So sometimes the thing that you're seeing, right, that you're wanting to perceive as competition, using that, like Trevor Ott said, as a growth mechanism. Let it inspire growth. Let it inspire you to be better. Hey, this is the business, that I'm in, and this is what other people in the industry are doing. Let that drive you to up level what you're doing in your business. Not to want to compete with them or to compare yourself or measure them, but let it be used as a growth mechanism. How can I use that? There are so many people, I'm in the service-based industry, and so I'm always looking at what other consultants and coaches and stuff are doing. And I don't go change my service offerings or go change my website or go change what I'm doing to mimic what they're doing. But I'll see it and I could have an idea and say, I'm already doing this. That's a really good idea. I like the way that she's, doing this over here or doing this over there. And it may, trigger something in my mind, that could be better in my business, to grow my business, but not to go carbon copy what I see in the industry and go now put that in my business. Because if you're doing that, you'll never gain momentum. You'll never make any strides because you're constantly comparing, competing, and then going to change what you're doing to try to measure up to some standard. So once again, when we think about those solutions for competition, realize that you really are your only competition, embracing that growth mindset, and then using competition as a growth mechanism. So now we're going to move on to the last C, which I think is very, very important, and that is complacency. And that is, referring to this state of self-satisfaction or contentment that can lead to stagnation. Now, I want to just put this out here. When I'm talking about complacency, I'm not talking about being nestled into some comfort zone. Complacency is when we get into a place and we're not pursuing any type of growth. We are where we are. We might be complaining about it. We might be comparing ourselves and, silently competing with other people. But when we're in a complacent state, we're not even willing to do anything about where we are. And so when we are complacent, what we find is that there's sometimes this failure to adapt to current changes. We're living in a changing time. So many things around us are changing, and so many people are complacent, and they are just oblivious to a lot of the changes and the shifts that are happening around us, and they're not changing, right? Also, if you think about it from a business aspect, When we are complacent, we miss so many opportunities. Things could come to us. We meet people. We have opportunities. We don't even have the bandwidth to take on the opportunities because we're nestled into these, comfort zones that really aren't comfortable. I don't even know why they call them comfort zones. They should be called uncomfortable zones because there's nothing comfortable about being, comfortable about being uncomfortable. But so we're in these spaces and places, and we can't lean into change. We can't usher in change. We can't adapt to change or things that are coming in, and we're just kind of stuck. We're complacent, and it's such a dangerous spot to be in. Oftentimes when we are stuck, or when a person is stuck, everyone around them is stuck. And so they don't really see the problem or the issue with where they are because everyone around them is kind of stuck in their, in these ruts. And so complacency is a killer. Being complacent can kill anything you have going on in your life, anything in your business. It will absolutely stunt your growth. I think about all of the opportunities and all the big leaps that I've made, excuse me, out of my comfort zone and into new spaces, learning new things, learning new people, learning about different industries and all of that, and how it's really just expanded my worldview and my understanding around a lot of things. So some of the solutions to moving around complacency is igniting this sense of curiosity. I talked in one of the previous episodes of this podcast around curiosity and how important it is that we remain curious and that we want to go in and learn about different things and that we're open to it. Another one is asking questions, right? Asking the right questions. You can always tell about a person's level of thinking based on the levels and the types of questions that they're asking. So asking questions that will allow you to really expand your knowledge and your understanding. Another solution to complacency can be connecting with people around you that are inspiring. Wayne Dyer says that to be inspired is literally to be in spirit. Be around inspiring people. Learn what people are doing. There is so much going on and so many good things going on around us. So being connected to inspiring people that are doing inspiring things is definitely a way to help move away from this idea of being complacent, because honestly, it should inspire you and move you into action and having you wanting to move to that next level or do something different or grow and expand yourself in some way. Another thing that you can do is to set some really, really meaningful goals for yourself. As I said, I'm my only competition. I've got my numbers up. My board is the only thing that I'm worried about. So setting those meaningful goals, I can't get there from here. So if I'm complacent and I'm stuck and I'm in this space today, I'll never achieve the goals that I've set for myself. It's going to require me to be curious, to ask questions, to be around people that are inspiring, to learn new things, to be in new spaces. I'm not going to achieve the goals where I am today. And lastly, increasing accountability. It's so important that you learn to have this heightened sense of accountability as we think about the goals, rather, being able to hold myself accountable to that. And so as I'm doing that, I can't be accountable and complacent. Those two things really don't go together. They don't jive. They don't play well together. So I'm either going to be complacent or I'm going to be held to account. It's going to be one or the other. So I hope that today you have thought about the 4 killer C's. Remember, these are things that can kill your personal life. They can kill your business. They can kill your brand. I hope that you've heard something today that resonates with you and that you can think about some of the solutions that I've mentioned, and that you can use some of those things to really turn around these silent killer C's in your life. Thanks, guys, for being here for this episode. I'll see y'all the next time.